What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of Pickin Corners. Thank you guys for coming back last week. Hopefully you're back this week. Actually, what am I talking about? If you've been watching my NHL videos this week, I know you're back this week because we had a hell of a start to the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Slightly down Thursday. We're going to see what's going to happen on this 2-game Friday. I don't know why the NHL does this to us. They give you a feast followed by a famine. But I guess sometimes in my personal life, I like things like that. Like weeks will go by, I won't touch a sip of alcohol. And then I go out, I'm drinking everything that's out in the bars on that night. It's an all or nothing kind of guy. I guess the NHL agrees with me on that front. But before we get into kind of the weekend overview on some of the games, I did want to mention couple more theories. I like to start with a couple theories, a little bit of educating for those of you guys who don't really bet hockey too much. It's an under the radar sport. It's a sport that not everybody bets on. Your average person doesn't really know. And I'm amazed how many people, unless they're just completely bullshitting me, are saying that they've never watched hockey at all. And because of my videos on the channel and stuff like that, they find every game absolutely riveting. I don't know if it's because they're paying attention to some of the theories and tracking if it works and what doesn't work. But I'm happy that people are finding it. Hey, you're just figuring out something I've known my whole life. I don't know how you guys watch basketball. How do you watch that? They're mailing in every performance. And if you do that in the NHL, you're mailing in performances game 3. You're going to get reamed out just like you saw from the Devils after their second straight loss, where they were getting drilled by Lindsey Ruff, their coach, at practice. And now we're going to see. My theory was that on Friday night, they were going to come out shot out of a cannon against the Islanders. We'll see if that holds true. Same type of thing. You can't be lollygagging on the Philadelphia Flyers, because I saw Tortorella before that win against the Oilers. He was saying, we're trying to get young people opportunities, because they were kind of like half criticizing him about like, how do you feel about like inserting people in and out of the lineup? And he was like, well, we got to find opportunities for these younger players, and we're going to give it to the players who deserve it the most. You saw the Rangers double shifting Artemi Panarin. You can't lollygag in the NHL. And with a team like the Philadelphia Flyers, who play under Tortorella. There you go. And what does that mean, playing under Tortorella? Well, there's a couple of coaches in the NHL. They stress defense first by a mile, and Tortorella is one of those coaches. If he has a really good team, they usually end up making the playoffs. If they kind of lack talent, you see what you got last year from the Flyers and kind of the year before, or the year before that, from the Blue Jackets. He's trying to make the most of what he has out of the talent, and he does that by stressing his defensive system. And when it comes to picking games and a sports betting perspective, if you're ever going to stay away from betting against the Flyers, because the Flyers are going to be a perennial bad team until they start to get into that next level of their rebuild. But if you bet against the Flyers, you really got to be careful doing that earlier in the season. Just like last year, the year before that, the Flyers are always getting off to good starts. And last year we saw a similar thing, low-scoring wins, shutting the other teams down on offense. I made the slight mistake. I bet on them at home the other night against Vancouver, who was 2-0 at the time, and we were rewarded. It was called a good call. I don't know why I'm putting that in quotes. It was a good call. You were getting plus money at home from a team that people assume is going to be the worst. But first month of the year, I can't reiterate any more often, that's when you're going to see solid runs from teams that you're probably not expecting. It's like a bookend. You get it early in the year, and then you get it at the very end of the year when it means nothing to those teams. They have no pressure on them. Pittsburgh's playing for their playoff lives, gripping their sticks. You know who's laughing out there? Chicago. Oh, who cares? We lose, we get the top odds for Bedard. We win, we screw Pittsburgh. Have you ever been in a situation? How about this? Go to a casino, bet with your own money, bet with someone else's money, see which time you're having more of a laugh with. Yeah, it's other people's money, and that's what teams are at the end of the year. The beginning of the year, it's different. And I fell victim to the Flyers. I thought that Edmonton's power play as soon as they get a chance or two, it's so vicious they're going to be able to score. Then anytime you play against a defensive team, it is critical to score first, because then that team is a little more likely to take chances on offense, and they'll provide you those little crevices that you need in the offensive end to build on that lead. But if they get the lead and they're going to allow you to come to them, they're just going to sit back, wait for you to make a mistake, and then go up 2-0 as they did in that game. Who's another team that plays like that? Those New York Islanders, the team that I'm a fan of. Scoring first for them is crucial. Scored first in both games so far, and they're 2-0 this year. I know I picked the Devils as one of my favorite bets here on this Friday. We'll see how it goes, but a big part of that is scoring first. And my theory is they've been sitting, waiting to play, pissed off that they've lost 2 in a row. They should jump on the Islanders early, because I think the Islanders have nothing to worry about. Like, oh yeah, we're playing our style, we're winning easily. My thought is that in the first period, they're going to kind of get blitzkrieged a little. But anyway, going back to what I was saying about the Flyers early season, you got to be scared betting against them. If anything, if you repeatedly see these defensive efforts and performances, you can look for unders in games that they take part in. I have a series of teams, and it kind of morphs every single year. They're called the under list. And if an under plays an under team, just don't even think about it. If you see that number 6.5, because you don't want to see it at 5.5, or it sucks when 6 pushes. But if you see a team at 6.5 and it's from the under list, like the under list is like last year, it was Dallas. Yeah, and it could be a good team because if they play defensive, Dallas, the Islanders, we had Columbus on that list. We had Washington on that list. And there was, we had the Minnesota Wild on that list. We had Nashville on the, there was a series of these teams. Other unders, you got to kind of sniff them out. You want to sniff from me? I'm seeing this early. Now, it's only a few games, but I think the sports books are agreeing with me. The Boston Bruins, good organizations. They don't just go down without a fight. Oh, yeah, they lost all those centers. Awful year for them. You can remove them from the playoff discussion. They make the necessary changes. They lost a ton of offensive talent. What does that mean? Boston's going right back to focusing on defense. Look at all these wins. Look at the goals they're conceding. I know they just played the Sharks, but they get up early, and it's not like they're trying to go up 6-0. They're playing defensively responsible, end up winning 3-1. Game 1, I believe they won 2-1 against the Blackhawks. Then it was maybe a 3-2 against Nashville or something like that. So they're focusing on defense. So the Boston Bruins, that's a team where I'm going to add them tentatively. It's so early. We need to see, I'd say, 10 games from these teams. But the Bruins are going to be a part of the undercover club, where you're on my under and you're going to cover. The undercover club, the teams who we're going to be taking for unders. I mean, the Islanders are just going to live on that list. But before you start going crazy saying, all right, then, all right, Andy, you said October might be a month of overs. That could be October. But we have teams that are on the under. It all depends, bunch of variables. But I want to introduce a conspiracy theory that I teased on my daily videos that I said, if you come over to my show on my YouTube channel, I'll talk about it. It's the ruckus theory. And I definitely talk about this during the playoffs for day games, but this is going to be the opposite of that. But on day games, I always say, if you're going to be on the road in the playoffs, it's so much better to get one of the earlier games. You have a distinct advantage. Why? And the best way I can describe it is minimal ruckus. Minimal ruckus. What do you mean ruckus? Think about a Philadelphia Eagles game at like 8:00 at night. Think about a crowd on a Saturday night that's been tailgating all day. It's mostly adults. It ain't kids there. There's a raucous environment that is more likely to leak its way into the energy on the ice. Meanwhile, that first playoff game, that 12:30 Saturday game, it's the family carnival game. The kids are out. The first period always seems like regular season type of energy. You can weasel by on the lack of ruckus. But the later the games get on the weekend, I feel like the energy from the crowd seeps into the games, and you tend to see more overs on the weekend. Now, there are certain teams we'll keep off the list regardless. But for example, the Islanders are playing the Devils tonight. A crusty, raucous Long Island crowd that's been drinking outside the stadium. Don't be surprised if that one goes over 6. But Andy, how does people drinking and going nuts at a game, how does that affect overs and all? I told you it was partial conspiracy theory. I believe that raucous weekend environments tend to go over more. Maybe there's some things, maybe the players went out on a Friday and they're a little worse on a Saturday. Maybe they're looking forward to a Saturday. Maybe it's a F it, it's the weekend, the way I feel about my gambling account. You're more likely to take chances. You're more likely to make it a memorable Saturday. I don't know why. Somebody can dig up some dusty records in the last couple of years, but I'm not going to read them because I know the caveats that I would stay away from. Like, I got my under teams. I probably wouldn't do that if two of them were playing each other. But if I was ever going to veer over, it's A, going to be early in the season, and B, it's going to be on weekends with Sunday excluded. I don't count Sunday. You know that Sunday mood. The same way, the same type of mood you're in, everybody's in, even the players. They're just normal people, and I don't like huge overs on Sundays. I don't know. I guess it depends. Sunday's a weird one. But when I say this, I'm talking about predominantly Fridays and Saturdays. And I do want you to take that particular theory with a grain of salt. That is straight up tinfoil hat theories. The other things that I was trying to tell you, like actual advice, you want real advice. I was starting to talk about this on the channel the other day. If you're betting totals and you're betting puck lines means taking a team by 1.5. So, for example, I said I really like the Devils tonight against the Islanders. See that game right there? The puck line is what you see right there in the middle, minus 1.5 plus 196. It means your team has to win by 2. Now, I'm not going to use this example because the total that you see next to it is 6. But we're going to go to the one below that. We're going to look at or how about the Columbus Blue Jackets game from tonight? Is that up there? Scroll the other way. So there's a perfect example. So if I think the Calgary Flames are going to win this game, and I want to take that puck line, I just want to put in a little and try to make a ton of money. And all right, I see the puck line and I see the totals. I want to put these together and I want to make money. If you're going to do minus 1.5, you can't go over 6.5. I mean, you can. Well, I'm sorry. I want to do that the opposite side. If you take the plus 1.5, you cannot take the under 6.5 because think about the scores that will win for you. So, for example, I like Columbus tonight plus 1.5. Don't have a great read on the game. Calgary played last night. I think a home team waiting for a team that played last night, despite how good or bad you are, I always think the better thing to do is get your money on the team that's been waiting. So if I want Columbus at plus 195 and I see this list and I go, well, how about I just add it with the under? You're screwing yourself because you're giving them a free goal. If you're taking them at plus 1.5, like you're like me and you think, yeah, but what if they lose in overtime? They might just lose this one by 1. What scores can you cover plus 1.5, under 6.5 on? 1-0. Assuming you lose, by the way, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. There is no score that 6 goals is going to save you in. So if you're going to take plus 1.5, never take it with under 6.5. Do you understand what I'm saying? And on the puck line, if I thought a team like the Bruins last night as an example, I'm like, I bet you that's a low scoring game. They win by 2. You can take the puck line and then you can take under 6.5. Because if you're going to hit the under by the max amount of goals, which is 6, right? That's the most you can hit with covering. A 4-2 score can get you there. You want to be able to use up every single one of the goals if you're going to be betting on a side. And if you take the plus 1.5 puck line, you have to combine it with either 5.5 or 7.5. You need odd numbers if you're going to be taking a plus 1.5. I hope that's pretty self-explanatory. But the more and more I meet regular people in life, I'm just shocked. Do you know how long it took me to explain to somebody that putting 2 bets together equals a parlay? Just picking 2 things. I said, "Well, you click this one thing and you click another thing, and if you get them both right, the money is more as if you bet one game." And they were looking at me like, and I'm like, "Really? You you're already not saying go on to the next thing. I'm really having to backtrack and explain to you that picking 2 things is better than picking one. Flipping heads and tails, calling it twice pays out more than calling it once." He really had to I'm like, so you know what? I don't know if you guys understood what I said. To me, I should have had to take 10 seconds on it, but just in case, it was a long, drawn out process. And before I go on to some of these weekend games, I just do want to say another team, which is the opposite of the Carolina, I'm sorry, the Philadelphia Flyers are the Carolina Hurricanes. They are one of our massive under teams with the huge caveat not in the first month. They're the opposite. There are many quality teams. You're obviously seeing this from the Oilers, and you're seeing this from some other teams. Like the Rangers are 2-2 against pretty bad teams. You're not going to see quality playoff top level efforts from these teams this early in the year. The more somebody has actual Stanley Cup aspirations, the more I truly think that you're going to see poor performances from them early, because this is when they experiment. Anybody who knows Carolina, it is so hard to get a bunch of pucks past them. Unless it's October, you see this 7-4. It was a 6-4 win the night before that. They're getting in these high-scoring games, which is something you never see from them from like month 3 on. Brind'Amour style, I mean, they have stifling defense year after year after year after year. But if there's one time you can take advantage of overs with them, and I still don't have the balls. Just seeing the Carolina Hurricanes logo, I can't click the over. But for real, early in the year, they're just little rules that should automatically click into place. Like, I before E, except after C. It's not like something that applies throughout. It changes on a year-by-year basis. But from what we've seen from Carolina, including last year before, if they're going to get in these high-scoring affairs, it's going to be early. So just be careful betting on unders just because it's quote-unquote the Carolina Hurricanes, because we're going to have plenty of chances to do it. But let's just wait. Let's hope that they tear up the score sheet early in the year so that at that midpoint of the year, we're not already at 6 and 5.5 for them. I want to see that 6.5 with Carolina. So that's my last team that I'll talk about. I talked about the Flyers, the Bruins, and them, some rules to add to your book. Yeah, you should have a notebook where you're keeping these all down, and then you can look at the games and say, let's see how mine stack up against Andy's. So let's look at some of these games that we have over the weekend. We obviously have those 2 tonight, but then looking at tomorrow, we're going to start with, look at that one, go back up to Detroit, Ottawa. This is a fascinating game to me because Detroit has had an incredible start. And you want to know who else has had an incredible start, at home at least? That's Ottawa. They're not wasting their opportunities at home, and they are playing some fantastic offense, especially at home. I mean, they have a good team. Something for me, as I mentioned on the channel earlier this week, Jacob Chychrun, when they added him, and now that they have 3 really good defensemen, and we're going to see if the goaltending in the bottom half of the defensemen hold up. But they developed some good chemistry on offense, and the offense that they can provide from the back end really tends to come at you at waves. They are still susceptible in their own zone, but I really do like what I'm seeing. They've had a couple big wins in a row at home. And looking at this line, man, this is a tough one to call. Detroit was one of my under teams, big time. They were on the under list. You just made the list. Do you remember that from Chris Jericho? Well, they made my list. Everything's going great for them early in the year. A bunch of overs. Ottawa is just playing so goddamn well. This one, in my mind, it's going to go back and forth. You would like to think it ends 4-3 and maybe go over or something like that. You want to know what you can do to put my theory to the test? If you want to take the over in this game, then take Detroit. Maybe you get a 4-3 plus 1.5, that is. If you take the plus 1.5 and the over 6.5, that 4-3 will get you there, or if they win. You don't have to see if you click the 6.5 now as well. Will it show you, or is it too early? If you click that tomorrow, it will show you the odds, by the way. You can get rid of those. The night before on Caesars, for whatever reason, it won't actually process the odds. But if you did that tonight or tomorrow morning, that will show you the combined odds of that game. Looking at some of these other ones, scroll down. That's way too much to pay, even though Arizona. This one, you guys know what I'm thinking. I'm just scared. This is a combination of theories, right? This is two of my under teams, but it's too early in the season. It's October, God damn it, and it's my ruckus weekends. If that game that you're looking at right there was on a Wednesday, I'm taking the under. Sabres Islanders, I'm going with the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres lost a tough one against Calgary last night, but they're going to be the team that's waiting at home for the team that's playing tonight and then has to travel to Buffalo and play tomorrow night for a team that's waiting. Just like I told you about Columbus, I would rather them at home than betting on Calgary winning in back-to-back nights. Columbus is just so bad. That's why I would take them at plus 1.5. In this case, I like the Sabres coming off a loss. Sometimes, like the game of chess, I'm thinking a couple steps ahead. And I was hoping Buffalo lost so that they don't end up losing 3 out of 4 at home to start the season and 4 out of 5 overall. You should be getting a more desperate Buffalo team. The Islanders just beat Buffalo last week. Another reason, if it was a home and home, I usually think one team gets each of those. I do like the Buffalo Sabres in that game. Leafs Lightning. I've been on the Lightning for both of their home wins, and I bet against them every single game. I'm undefeated with the Lightning so far. Looking at this quickly, I know Tampa's going to have fight against that team that eliminated them, and it ain't going to be easy, but Toronto losing another close, tough one. If Vasilevsky was in there, I would probably take Tampa Bay. If Vasilevsky was in there, I would definitely take Tampa Bay plus 1.5. But then again, I don't even know if they'd be favored. I'm leaning towards Toronto on that one. This next Canucks game, Panthers, we're due, I think, for some Panthers ruckus. I know that's a minus 135 on the over 6.5. My first thought is to do some of that. Now, look at this. It's early in the season, and 2 of my under teams are already at 6 with the Flyers and the Stars. This is what I'm saying, where I wish teams rack up some goals early because I want to avoid these lines where it's 6. Sometimes, like if this was 1 month from now, I would buy it up to 6.5, take the under, and combine it with another team. Oh, what's another team? Let's scroll to the bottom. If this was a month from now, I would spend more to take that game at under 6.5. Keep going down. Keep going. I think it's all the way at the bottom. Right there, Columbus and Minnesota. If this was a month from now, I'm going under 6.5, Columbus, Minnesota, under 6.5, Montreal, Washington, preferably on a Tuesday or Thursday. I don't like betting too many unders on the weekend because you chalk it up to conspiracy theory. The Carolina-Colorado one right there is very fascinating. Colorado hasn't really had to play any tough teams yet, unless you want to call the Kraken a tough team. They've handled, they did beat the Kings. They almost blew a 3-0 lead. For me, the big thing, if Aho plays, I'm absolutely taking Carolina at plus 1.5 in that one. Carolina's going to get up to play that game. They haven't got up to play some of these bad West Coast teams. Carolina is going to pack a good punch in that game. That one sounds like it's going to overtime to me. Rangers Kraken, that one's difficult to kind of pick one out in. God, call me crazy, but the Oilers can't keep losing these games. The only benefit from them losing all these games is that you're getting a good price on them. And I do like the Los Angeles Kings. The Boston Bruins have not had one tough opponent yet. I'll take the home dog in that game right there with Los Angeles at home against Boston. And that's what I have for you here on this Saturday. It's not the whole assortment of bets. I really got to look at the player props. They're not even available yet. And if you want those, yes, that's right. You can join the Patreon, which there's a link to down below. That's where I put my full assortment of picks. I try to put my picks also early the night before so people can get them when they're at the best possible prices, even throughout the week. You can feel free to join it if you want. There's no pressure around here. I obviously use the funds to take care of all the prices for all this nonsense. And it's very much appreciated. You know, I put in a lot of work to all this, including this show. You want to know how much Pickin Corners pays me? Did you catch who the sponsor is? That's right. A grand total of nobody. Crest 3D ain't here yet. Maybe it'll be Colgate because they're trailing Crest big time in the toothpaste game. But subscribe to the Patreon if you want picks over the weekend. It's the only place that I really post my weekend picks. Also, you see this right here. Don't forget about my Sniff Drip. I still got some stuff from the original orders. You can go to andyfrancis.com, which will redirect it there, or on Instagram, the View Shop, right on my store. It has the shirts there. You'll order them. I'll send them out to you. Maybe I'll write a little note to you. And, I spent some time on the designs. They're pretty funny, like this one. Sniffing is believing. So until next week, I will talk to you guys next time. As I like to say, good luck to you. Better luck to me. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Tell some friends about this. Let's help grow this even more. This is a little different than the Odd Shopper stuff. I don't have anybody pushing out the videos, this, that, and the other. It's only really going to happen via word of mouth and algorithm. So if you guys can do me that solid, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll be back with you guys next week for Pickin Corners Week 4. Thank you so much. Hope you learned a couple treat things, and I'll talk to you then.